All right. So hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I'm Jia Pei, the co-lead of human practice at iGEM CCU Taiwan. I'll be one of your hosts for today. So first of all, thank you so much for your participation. And once again, please note that the whole meeting will be recorded for those who aren't able to join us due to time accommodation. And please turn off your microphone unless speaking. So the symposium for today will be separated into two parts. The first is the judging criteria, and the second would be experience sharing. So, all right, allow me to briefly introduce two of our speakers from iGEM Judging Program Committee. Dr. Brennan, Senior Lecturer at Washington University in St. Louis, and Life Science Consultant Sir Patrick Wu will be joining us for today. And both of them were former iGEMers, and we really have the honor to have them here to sharing some of the insights from judging's perspective on what they think is the most important to succeed in the competition. And after that, we'll be followed by the short Q&A sessions. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hi. Hello, everyone. It's so good to be here. We do have a short couple of slides just to help us sort of stay on point and make sure we cover the points we kind of want to. So give me a second while I start sharing those. Thank you for having us here. All right. Patrick, you want to lead off?
Yeah, so it's nice to kind of spend this. I suppose it's a morning for you guys. It's kind of like the evening for us here in North America. But I'm excited to see that there's so many opportunities for iGEMers to still try and meet and gather, even though not everyone can be in the same place all the time. My name is Patrick. I am one of the members of the Judging Program Committee, which was formerly known as the Executive Judging Committee. And I was a student in iGEM. I think I joined in 2010, and I was a student for about 4 years. And then after that, I was a judge. And then after that, I joined the JPC. And basically, it's been like 11 consecutive years of iGEM in some form or another for me, which is a long time. But how about you introduce yourself a little bit, Janie?
Yeah, I'm Janie Brennan. I was an iGEMer from 2007 to 2009, so I'm dating myself a little bit, but yeah, I did iGEM way back in 2007. And then I served as a graduate mentor, and then after graduate school, I became a faculty advisor for a couple years. Our team's a little bit on hiatus right now. But yeah, and then I became a judge during graduate school, and I actually served as a judge in the very first high school jamborees, which were kind of fun. Back in the day, high school was separate. It was very cool to see the birth of that. And then starting in 2014, I started serving on what is now the Judging Program Committee. It's evolved a little bit over time. But yeah, lots of time doing iGEM. So we've both been a little bit around the block. All right, let me see if I can, there we go. All right, so what we're going to sort of cover today in our brief little hopefully brief-ish presentation is where the most important judging information can be found, a little bit of our perspective about how judging actually works, the difference between medals and special prizes, some answers to some of the most frequently asked questions that we get on the Judging Program Committee, and then our final sort of key tips for success. So no, this is your slide, Patrick.
It's fine. Really the thing that we really just want to emphasize is that all of this information can be found on the iGEM, like the main iGEM competition website. So 2021.igem.org. A lot of other different links kind of along the way. If you want to kind of learn about judging in general, 2021.org/judging. That is the one that leads to all the other links on the page. But one thing that I want to emphasize for you all is to take a look at the judging handbook. which is a very large PDF, and it says it's like on the navigation menu on the left-hand side, it says for judges. It's not just for judges. It is also for you as participants of the iGEM competition to look over kind of, here are examples of what a best wiki looked like in previous competitions. What does a best project look like? What does best modeling look like? And then you can use those examples that are put in the judging handbook as ways for you to kind of say, maybe this is how you approach the thing. But we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. So yeah, make sure, just kind of keep a note of these links, but all of them can be found on the competition website.
Yeah, and another thing about the judging handbook is it not only shows you good examples, but it shows you how the judges think about those examples, like what made them good exactly. So it gives you a little bit of insight into how judges sort of assess and evaluate projects.
Right.
All right, so how does judging actually work? So there's been a lot of misconceptions we've noticed over the years, so which is why we wanted to kind of go through this. So when you come to the Jamboree, your team will be assigned 6 judges. Those judges are randomly assigned to some extent. We do avoid any conflicts of interest. We do try to maintain gender balance to the extent possible. And we try to sort of spread around expertise as we can. But other than those sort of criteria, your judges are randomly assigned to your team. So in this new sort of digital Jamboree age, the judges are going to watch your video presentation before your assigned judging session. During your session, you'll get to chat with the judges, and they'll ask you questions, you'll have a conversation. It's not necessarily as formal as you might think. The judges really just want to get to understand your project. They've had a chance to look at your wiki, they've watched your video, but they want to get any of those little gray areas they didn't quite get from your video or your wiki. They want to ask you about them. Once they're done asking all those questions and looking at everything, the way the judges score is that there is a standardized rubric, and you can actually find that elements of that rubric on the website. And the reason we use a rubric, so this rubric is special. We spent a lot of years developing and refining this rubric. This rubric is special because basically every little category is based on a question. So something like, did the students do the work themselves? And then the follow-up language is yes, definitely, or probably most of it. But there's language describing the levels. So the judges, this helps ensure consistency amongst judges. So they're going to score based on how your performance matches the language in the rubric. They're not just doing rating you on a 1 to 6 scale, because if one judge's score of 1 and one judge's score of 1 might be very different. So this helps ensure consistency and reliability of the rubric. And it's proven itself over the years, and it's only gotten better. So once judges enter all of their scores into their rubric, and by scores, we mean they selected the language that matches what they saw in your team's performance and in your wiki and everything, those scores are automatically computed after the ballots freeze. So it used to be Sunday night, the ballots would freeze, and the schedule's all different now. But the ballots at some point freeze after everyone is given a chance to present, and there's a few more hours to give judges to tally up everything. And using those ballots, the finalists, medals, and special prizes are automatically determined based on your scores.
So yeah, the thing is that just to add to that a little bit, it's funny because when we were in person, it's just kind of funny to see that the judges also get like their own freeze, kind of like how you guys get your own wiki freeze, and there's a deadline and there's the same kind of rush to make sure everything is entered and everything is accurate. There are situations also where no, a judge just for some circumstance just cannot be there. We aim for 6 judges. We have a pool of reserve judges that we pull in if we don't meet it, but we also say that if we have at least 4, is that correct, Janie?
4 is the minimum, yes.
4 is the minimum. So you will have somewhere between 4 to 6 judges, most likely 6 judges for your evaluation. But because it's all automatically calculated, it is still weighted out to be the same. And the thing is that because it's all automated, even we don't know who is the finalist until the computer just spits out who the finalists are, and we're like, okay, we're gonna make some prizes then. So it is all very kind of automated, and we try our best to not bias the results as much as we can.
Yeah.
So now we can move on to the next slide. The most important thing, though, that you can do to help the judges make as accurate an evaluation of your project as possible is to fill out your judging form. And so you'll see on the bottom of that slide, there is the link to instructions on how to find your judging form, because it is a little tricky, but we basically, the judging form is the thing that the judges will see first. And this is where you basically say, okay, so in order to evaluate us for our project, please take a look at these pages on our wiki. If you want to take a look at our best parts, please take a look at these pages for our parts. And so you tell the judges what you want them, what to look at in order to evaluate you for these things. So this is why we tell teams to be, thorough and to try your best to make sure that judging form is complete. Because if it isn't, then it really, it does make things a little bit harder for the judges to evaluate your stuff. And the other thing is that when you're given your wiki, you have a set of URLs, you have a set of links that are already created for you, and those are the pages that automatically link to corresponding sections of the judging form. So we tell teams to be very careful when you're creating new wiki pages, that if they're very, very weirdly named, the judging form might not see it. And if the judging form doesn't see it, then the judge might not see it. And so we want to make sure that you use those standardized links as much as possible, because otherwise we don't know whether or not the judges will actually see that part of your project while they're filling out their evaluation. Is there anything to add, Janie?
Yeah, I would add just two things. First is just make sure you can fill out your judging form and submit it, and then you can check it, and then you can edit it, I believe. So
Yeah.
just make sure before the deadline, you double check all of the links in your judging form. Just double check. Another pro tip is that 2 people cannot edit it at the same time. You should have 1 person edit your judging form. If 2 people are simultaneously making edits, only half of them will get saved. You cannot both edit the judging form simultaneously. So,
and that might cause some conflict issues where you think that you made an edit on the judging form for one thing, but it didn't save your version because it saved the other person's version.
Yeah, just be very careful. It's hurt some teams in the past, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, all right, medals. So what are the medals really? So the medals, you are all probably aware of this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but medals are really the way that we can award every team for succeeding in a competition against themselves. So this is your way to show that you can do engineering and iGEM, and you have ideas, and you can contribute to the community. So everyone can win medals. There is no upper limit on the number of gold medals we can award. It's all a matter of if every team fulfilled the gold medal criteria, every team could get a gold. And that would be kind of awesome. So generally speaking, the way the judging program committee thinks about it is that each medal has a sort of goal or intent behind it. So the bronze medal is really all about you participating in iGEM and you contributing to the iGEM community. So if you participate and you contribute to the community, you should have no problem getting bronze. And those those are 2 things that are just fundamental to being part of iGEM. Obviously participating, but iGEM is all about having our community and giving back to the community and sharing information and sharing knowledge. And so that's why bronze is all about that. Silver, the next level up, is sort of like, okay, you've contributed to the community. Can you come up with some sort of engineering success? Have you been able to, and can you collaborate with another team? So it's basically the idea of, can you achieve some sort of basic scientific / engineering achievement, whether that be making a part, making a device, planning out a part if you couldn't get into the lab, anything, and also just communicating with another team. Again, we're bringing back that idea that iGEM is about community. It's about sharing across the continents and the world and getting to know people from other countries. And so silver requires you to collaborate with another team because we think it's really important to talk to people outside of your bubble. You also have to do some human practices for silver. So again, get out of the lab bubble and see how your project can affect the community. So bronze is about participating, contributing to iGEM in general. Silver is about sort of hitting those standard accomplishments we really want to see every team accomplish. And then gold is about going above and beyond. It's like, can you just take your project and do super cool stuff with it? And that's pretty much it. So the last thing I want to mention about medals is please, please, please read the language on the medal criteria very carefully. Much like the rubric, the medal criteria language has been refined and refined over the years, and it is very carefully written. We try to be as concise, so as short, but as specific as possible. So however it is worded, that is how it is going to be assessed. We have tried to add some guidance in the past few years to help you understand what some of those words mean. But if you do have any questions, you can always email judging@igem.org, for example. Anything to add on that, Patrick?
Not really. I think you've covered most of it. So I want to address special prizes a little bit here. A lot of the time, so with the medal criteria, you are meeting particular standards in order to go up to a medal, like a medal ranking. And medals, you see that in other competitions, there's many teams that can all win gold medal or silver medal or bronze medal. With the special prizes, we want to acknowledge excellence for one team kind of in their division that kind of exhibits some of the stuff. So you'll see there's a bit of overlaps, best human practices, but those kinds of things, but those are evaluated separately from how your medals are evaluated. And the key here is that in your judging form, you nominate yourself for a special prize. So you will say, I think we have earned, I think we have met all the criteria to potentially win best part, for example. And so then you would fill out that section of the judging form and explain, why do you think we have the best part? Here is the part in question, and then a little explanation about it all. If you are doing parts though, remember that only information on the iGEM registry of standard parts counts. If you have written it in your wiki, but it is not on the registry, then it won't be evaluated. Like the judges will not count that as part of your score. So make sure that if you have anything parts related, you take all of that information and you put it on the registry, because the idea is that we want other people to use the registry as a tool, and they can get all the information on that one website instead of having to go to everyone's wikis just to find that information about how to use that part. So that is one key thing, is that with the parts, always on the registry, make sure it's on the registry, and not just your wiki. Anything else, Janie?
So you can duplicate the part stuff on your wiki, but it is most important that it's on the registry. The only other thing I would add is don't sell yourselves short. Even if you don't necessarily think your work is the best and could win, it doesn't hurt to nominate yourself for special prizes that you have done work related to. You never know, and you might as well at least put in the nomination, because if you haven't nominated yourself, you have no chance of winning. So you might as well give it a shot.
Right.
All right, we have a bunch of common questions here. I see we've already gone about 15 minutes, so I don't know, do the moderators of this want to switch over to more Q&A style format? These are the ones we get a lot, so we could go through these.
Yeah.
Or you guys can ask your own questions.
Yeah, we can go through the common questions first, and then they will be followed by some of the collected questions from our participants.
Sure, absolutely. All right, so some of the questions we've gotten a lot, honestly, the last 2 summers. First, what happens if we can't get in the lab? And the answer is nothing in particular. You will be fine. We have redesigned all of the medal criteria and special prizes to some extent. You do not have to be able to get into the lab, because we know lots of people can't. So the one that most people ask about is engineering success, or some of the gold medal criteria. I believe there is one gold medal criteria that you have to be in the lab for, and that is improving a part. It's hard to do an improving a part unless you've been in the lab. But other than that, pretty much all of them can be done without being in the lab. And you should see the guidance on the medal criteria. That should help make that clear.
Yeah. And with gold medal criteria, like, so you have to do all the bronze, you have to do all of the silver. For gold, you don't have to do all the gold, you just have to do 3 of them. And as long as you meet 3 of them, then if you meet 3 of them and the judges are convinced that you meet 3 of them, then you may be awarded a gold medal for that. But it does mean that you have a lot of options for how do you reach that gold medal, because like Janie said, only one of those things actually requires you to be in a lab.
Mm-hmm.
The next one that we usually get is, what is the difference between silver and gold human practices, which hopefully we will try and address quickly, because it is a complicated question. But the way that I see it, at least, is that with silver human practices, it's, did you think about all of the like the social, environmental kind of impacts that your research might be doing, right? How did you think about, if I create a project where I'm dumping E. coli into alcohol to make it less poisonous for some reason, and you drink it, like, is that going to be a problem? Did you at least think about something like that? The way that we see gold level human practices is how it is integrated into your project as the year went on. So if you do something with your project and you interview people and you are learning about kind of, okay, I think I have a solution for farmers, for example, right? And then you actually go and talk to farmers, and farmers will tell you, like, actually, this part won't work because that's not how we do this thing. And so you're like, okay, I will take this back and I will make changes to our project design based on what we hear from people. And so the idea with integrated human practices is, how does it affect the way that you have continued to design your project over the course of iGEM, and not just, I think this is going to be a problem and I think this is going to be a problem. So it's a subtle distinction, but it is just like your attitude towards how important it is to your project and what do you do with that information that you learn from people.
Yeah, so it's the difference between thinking about it and then doing something about it and integrating it throughout your project, not just at the beginning and not just at the end, but throughout. That's what we mean by integrated human practices. So I think we've already kind of covered that question. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. What is engineering success is probably one of the most highly asked questions we've had in the last few years. And as one of the few engineers on the judging program committee, I feel I have an obligation to try and explain this one. So engineers, and I recognize that a lot of you on this Zoom are not necessarily engineers, and that's fine. I think that's great. I love that iGEM has people from all different fields. But the thing about engineering is engineering always comes back to something called the engineering design cycle. So it's the idea that you have an idea, you do some background research, you come up with an idea for how you could, or you have like a problem. So you define the problem, you do some background research, you come up with like a basic idea for how you might solve it, you do some testing, you figure out what didn't work in your testing, and you go and refine your solution. And then you keep going around and around in a circle. So engineering is about defining your problem and about planning out a solution. It's about sort of predicting what could be used to solve a problem, not just like throwing darts at a dartboard, not just making educated guesses. It's more than educated guesses. It's like reading the literature, really understanding how things work, and designing a system based on the knowledge you have to fulfill the criteria to solve the problem. So engineering success is basically the idea that you have really well defined your problem and that you've come up with a predictable, like a plan that predicts how to solve it effectively. And ideally you do get to solve it, but in this era of COVID, sometimes we can't get into the lab to actually solve it. But anything where you can sort of use our knowledge and plan and design and predict an outcome based on what we know, that is what we consider engineering success. And then hopefully revisiting that cycle and trying it again and again to the extent you have time to do.
And
Go
I,
ahead.
I think that's like, well, if that's still not quite clear, then we can talk about it a little bit more with other questions, or we can, always send us an email, judging@igem.org. Just want to go through the next bullet point, just kind of cover all of these guys. The difference between collaboration and partnership. Again, kind of like silver and gold human practices, collaboration is the silver level, where we're helping, you are helping a team, or a team is helping you do something. It doesn't have to be a two-way kind of thing. It's just, if a team helps each other out with a part of their project, with reviewing data or helping them run a gel or something like that, that is kind of what we had in mind for collaboration. For partnership, again, more kind of thorough, more kind of integrated throughout the year. Both you and the other team are doing something beneficial for your projects that you couldn't achieve without the other's help. So like if they didn't help you and you didn't help them, then you wouldn't have this part of this project to do it. That is what a partnership really means, because you're working together throughout the whole year to do this, instead of saying, I'm going to help you out with this gel, which, yes, like if you didn't get the gel, then it would be really inconvenient for your project. But with a partnership, you're trying to be a lot more kind of, again, integrated, right? More kind of part of the fabric between the two teams. I don't know if that makes sense. All right.
Yeah. I think another thing about the partnership is it's sort of inspired by, at its heart, iGEM has a lot of academic researchers in it, right? A lot of the judges are people in academia doing synthetic biology research. A lot of the team advisors are doing research. So a partnership was inspired by when faculty researchers at universities across the world are working on grant projects together. So sometimes there's a big grant to solve some sort of really important problem. And different labs at different places across the world will solve different aspects of that problem. And so the partnership criterion was criterion was inspired by that. So it's the idea that different iGEM teams might work together to solve a big problem together. They might just work on different aspects of it. But at the end of the day, they both need each other because they're solving the same sort of problem, and they couldn't do it without each other.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that makes sense. All right, moving on to education and communication. So this is something that has changed names over the years quite a few times. We've been trying to find the name that best encapsulates what we want it to reward. But basically, what does this mean? This is sort of your chance to do more, to sort of, how do I phrase this? So it's the idea that you're going to educate and have a two-way dialogue with other people about synthetic biology. It doesn't necessarily have to do with your project. This is one of those gold criteria that does not have to do with your project. You can do it no matter what your project is. You can educate and communicate with the public about synthetic biology. But what we're trying to reward is true education and true communication, not proselytizing. So this is not about you going into your community and telling everyone you know that synthetic biology is great and synthetic biology will change the world. Because that's not how people's minds are changed. That's not how people come to believe anything. The way people come to believe anything is by having a conversation, having a deep discussion, talking about the pros and cons. So this is about you teaching people in a deep sense, ideally. So this is about educating students or your parents or the local community or your government or something like that. But it's about communicating and establishing a two-way dialogue about synthetic biology.
And the way that I think about it is that it's not just them learning something, right? You have to be learning something from this too.
That's what we mean by two-way.
Yeah, that's what two-way means, right? You're not just a preacher giving a sermon to the church. You are also hearing people's concerns. You are understanding where these, like, if they have concerns, what are those concerns, and really kind of understanding why. And then you can take that back and say, okay, so now that we've learned this from other people, from these students, from our parents, from our community, what can we do with that information, or what have we learned from it? And then how, again, maybe how do we change the way that we do synthetic biology in the future? Things like that is a lot more interesting than saying, we gave a talk to high school students and they like synthetic biology now, and we have a survey to prove it. And that's not really compelling, right? It's not very, it's a lot more interesting to hear, like, what have you learned from them, just as much as what have they learned from you. So that's kind of where I would go with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of, the thing Patrick just described is something that would not win the best education special prize, right? So the idea,
everyone does a chat with the high school like class.
Not that you shouldn't. We're not trying to say that you should not do these things, because it is really important to tell people about synthetic biology and to get more people aware of it. But in terms of the iGEM competition, we really want you to have a meaningful conversation about it.
Try something new, right? And that's actually what we gave this new category, excellence in another area, an opportunity to shine, because there's been years where we've had teams that have done something just really very, very interesting, put a lot of energy and a lot of work on it, but we couldn't reward them for it because there was nothing in the rubric that really captured it. So we have this section as one of the gold medal things as excellence in another area, because maybe you guys have come up with something that's really, really interesting, that really kind of drives forward, let's say, design, entrepreneurship, diversity, inclusion. How do you get synthetic biology out to really interesting groups? We had teams in the past that talked about the gender balance between male and female in synthetic biology. We had teams that talked about how do you make synthetic biology labs more accessible for people with physical disabilities that couldn't normally handle a pipette without some special equipment. So really interesting things that you can do. And it is a little scary, because when you're saying like, I'm trying something completely new, does this count? And the problem is that we don't know if it counts. But if you, again, all of this is about, does the judge believe that this is something worthy of evaluation? And that is where you put that energy into saying, like, this is what we believe is really important to us, and we hope that that you're able to convince the judges that they see it the same way that you do. Yeah, anything else?
I don't think so. So with that, I think this is a good segue to do our final key tips. Patrick has sort of mentioned this a few times, and we sort of tried to hint at it, but basically it is your job to convince the judges of your accomplishments. It is not the judge's job to try and dig through and really question or guess or wonder if you did it. You need to be able to communicate and provide the evidence to support your accomplishments. So if you achieve something, awesome. Just show us the data, show us the photographs, the interviews, the whatever. Put that on your wiki, highlight it in your presentation. But be careful. Please do not oversell or overinterpret your results. We see teams do this a lot, and it's partly because of enthusiasm, which is great. We love enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is awesome. And we love teams being excited about their work, but careful not to think that because you got this one little thing to work, that the whole thing, your whole project is going to change the world. There's usually a lot more steps than that. So and judges, all the judges are professionals. They're going to see through that kind of thing. So just convince the judges of what you have achieved, but try not to exaggerate.
Yeah,
we'll say.
That's pretty much it, because like Janie said, I still remember there's actually quite a number of teams who basically go like, we built this construct, we put it in a gel, it is the right band size, and therefore we have our thing cloned into it. Like, no, we don't know that. You have to sequence it. You have to do all these extra experiments to really kind of confirm and be really sure, because that band could be anything really. You could have double cloned the plasmid. You could have PCR'd the whole thing wrong. You don't know if it works yet. You just know that there's a hint that something might be working, sort of, kind of. So this is where
some of that is honest mistake, but
yeah. It's not to say it's just something that you can't ever do. We just want to make sure that you are careful to see like, okay, what you see and what you understand from what you see, and you just don't want to like jump 2 steps ahead without doing all the work in between to say that you reached there. Because again, like Janie said, some people just get really excited, like, oh my gosh, we have the band, finally, we're done. No, you're not, not yet. But it is just because sometimes you don't have time, and that's okay. You can just say like, we didn't get to where we wanted to, but here's how we want to plan the rest of it. And that's perfectly valid because science takes time. And a single season during COVID, where you probably won't even get into a lab maybe, we don't expect like a whole bunch of fireworks and stuff like that. So just be honest with what you've achieved and be happy with what you've achieved, because it's still a lot of work that you've done,
Yes. And honestly, getting even in a non-COVID year, what I see teams achieving in a single summer / fall, or even a full calendar year if they've been planning ahead better than what my teams ever did, it's incredible. It's mind-blowing to me. So celebrate your accomplishments, because you guys do achieve amazing things.
Like what high school students are able to do now in iGEM were like PhD thesis like materials. Like it was a whole person's PhD like dissertation, like even 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
It's pretty cool.
It is, isn't it?
So yeah, just other key tips is just make sure you read the deliverables page and the medal criteria closely. The language is very precisely written for a reason. And if you do have any questions about what any of the words mean, don't hesitate to reach out. And do not overlook the judging form. Double check it before the deadline. Just double check that it is correct before it freezes. It's very important to do that.
Yeah, we went really over time, but hopefully we still have some time for questions, maybe.
Sure, that was awesome. Pretty much cover everything, but we still have some of the questions collected from participants. So I'll go through each one. The very first one is, iGEM teams might put forward hypotheses that help design their project, but have not yet been sustained by literature and lab. How will iGEM judges frame the question to test these hypotheses to the iGEM teams?
Let me see if I'm understanding that correctly. So teams are coming up with hypotheses that are just sort of out of the blue and there's nothing to support it yet. And how are judges going to feel about that? Am I understanding that correctly?
I think so.
Okay. We'll get there. So honestly, I think that's okay. I think one of the things that caused me to fall in love with iGEM in the first place is that there were teams when I started that were doing crazy like synthetic. So I'm old at this point, but synthetic biology, when I started, people were just doing crazy stuff. Like my favorite teams that I'll never forget in my year, the first year I ever did it, is a team created like artificial blood, like they created a hemoglobin bacteria thing. I don't remember, but basically they created something that could hold oxygen. And there was no literature to support that could be done. That didn't exist.
They didn't think about sepsis or anything like that, but they tried it anyway.
Well, whatever, but it was so cool. But it was just out of the blue, and it was creative and neat. And that's one of the things I love about iGEM is that it's student driven, hopefully, and students are gonna not feel confined by what's in the literature as much. People who have been in academia longer feel like they have to go by what they can already find, but that's not necessarily true. So I think it depends on, to some extent, how outlandish your hypothesis is or how reasonable you can make it sound, but like, don't be afraid to do something that's different, because that's one of the coolest things you can do.
I mean, how do you think all science questions are created, right? Is someone just said like, what if I make bacteria try and solve Sudoku one day, and then they go and do it? And if it doesn't work, then well, I guess that didn't work, but we learned something from it, because that's what science is, right?
And engineering, give it a shot. Worth it.
It really is. Just build things, see if they break. That's engineering.
Yeah.
Great answer. So for the next one is, how to balance intellectual property protection with details required to be given in your presentation?
Oh, that's a tough one for us.
That really depends on your university, I think, and how your university approaches, because every university has different policies about how intellectual property should be shared or not. So some
In different
places,
countries, for that matter.
in different countries. And so like from like Canada and the US, I don't think we can really say very much about what Taiwan or like East Asia will be able to do for you guys. And that's something that you might want to talk to your university about, like if there's like a technology transfer office, if there's a intellectual property management kind of office, those are questions that you would want to talk to them about.
But the bottom line is, though, the judges are going to want to know enough details to know whether or not you accomplished what you're saying you accomplished. So there is a tough balance between intellectual property and competing, right? Because at its heart, iGEM is about sharing knowledge, and like the iGEM was founded on the idea that we're all going to share our knowledge. The registry is meant to be a shared tool for everyone around the world. So in some sense, intellectual property is important and we understand why it exists, but it also has it runs a little bit counter to what iGEM values. So it's a little bit of a push and pull. It's hard. It's a hard balance.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't help necessarily, but
it's not an easy question. iGEM deals with that every year. Like
it's hard.
It's not an easy question.
Well, I mean, given the time constraint, that we really wanted to thank you for being here, to sharing some of the very important insight with us to help us achieve some of more next step to our project. And before you go, everybody, you can turn on your camera. We're going to take a screenshot together.
I'm sorry to interrupt, and if I missed the time to do that, but I have one question.
Oh yeah, you can go ahead.
We have a few minutes.
You said that human practices in like the gold category should be done throughout the whole project. So would you say it's like too late for that now?
No, it's not too late. The
Not
idea,
necessarily
like,
too late, yeah.
yeah, so like the idea is that, again, like you're learning from other people, but you can say like, okay, well, I just heard what you said, but we're gonna continue doing our thing anyway, even though it doesn't help you. Then that's not really integrating the stuff that you learn from it, right? If you believe that you have a solution to solve a problem, go talk to those people who you think you're helping and ask them if they actually are if you're actually helping them. And if they say no, what can you do with that information, right? Or if they say yes, great, you know that too. And then you can continue kind of refining that stuff. So no, it's never too late. The only time when it's too late is when you don't do it at all.
Okay, thank you.
It does get a little harder the longer you wait, though.
Ideally, you want to try and get it in, but even a little bit of like some feedback, right? You want to get that cycle of communication. You are talking to people are talking to you, you are teaching them, they are teaching you, and you just keep doing it in a big cycle until the sun dies, I guess. Like that's just how knowledge works.
Awesome. So if you're feeling comfortable, you can turn on your camera for now.
If I knew we were going to do that, I should have done my hair.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the bad lighting. It's like 4 a.m.
Right, I'll give you guys in a minute.
I can't believe you're here at 4 a.m. That's
wow. Anyone mind?
Right, I'll on the count to 3. So 1, 2, 3. Oh, there's next page. I'll do this again. So 1, 2, 3. Well, thank you so much for joining in, and it's been really great. It's a really fruitful discussion we got today, and really have a nice one.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully it was helpful. And I'm sorry that I ran a little bit long, but hopefully it was information that you guys like were hoping good. If not, again, judging@igem.org, and then send us an email, and then we'll address everything.
Yeah, thank you for today.
All right, enjoy the rest of your session.
Nice. We're moving on to the next session, and I'll pass it to Celine. You may have the floor.
All right. Can everyone hear me? I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hello everyone. For the next session will be hosted by me. I'm Celine, the HP leader of iGEM and CKO Thailand 2021. And firstly, we will invite, let's invite Sabrina Yo, the team leader of 2019's winner team. Oh my God. Eh? Okay. What? Oh, I'm sorry. So their project, oh my God, I think, a moment, I'm sorry, my camera. Good. Let's click on. Okay. Their project, oh my God, won the best therapeutics, best hardware, measurement, model, and presentation. Well, that's a lot. And they were nominated in almost all awards. And today she's going to share experiences and how they managed to win these awards. Without further ado, let's start.
Sorry, give me a moment. I need to load up my PPT. It's not loading.
Okay.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt you. You guys can send some of the chat in the chat box to introduce yourself because I think we have like 10 teams over here, which is really awesome to gather everybody here. So you're free to introduce yourself and your team and what you do at the iGEM.
Okay, so can everyone see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Sabrina, and I'm gonna be talking a bit about my experience in iGEM. So I was the team leader for NTKU Thailand in 2019, and I'm an advisor for the 2020 iGEM NTKU Thailand team. So before I talk a bit more about experience, I want to talk more about like iGEM itself. So in the beginning, right, like if you ask me, okay, so in the very beginning of the competition, so what is iGEM? And I can tell you a lot. It's a synthetic biology competition, it's an international one. You know, students all over the world are doing this. And, you know, I'm probably sure that everyone here can also answer all those questions. But if you ask me again, at the end of the competition, I would say that this competition, iGEM, is like Hydra. And I'm sure you have like, you know, seen it, heard its motto, like if you cut off one head, another grows in its place. So that's basically what I feel about iGEM. Like there's so many deadlines coming up, and even if you finish one deadline, you'll find that soon there's another deadline coming up, and you know, you get like all stressed out and that. So iGEM has like a lot of things to do, not just, you know, when you talk about like experiments or even their dry stuff. Like there's also a lot of awards that you guys are aiming for, right? Like there's best track, there's best presentation, and best model, and a lot of other best awards. And there will always come a question at one point in your like iGEM journey. Like there's just so many awards. Like which one should I focus on? And this is a question I think every iGEM team should ask themselves, because you know, this is something that all teams probably would not have the same answer to this question. Like take for example my experience in 2019. At that point, we were I mean, in the beginning you won't be thinking about awards, but at around like right now, like around August, September, as you start writing your wiki, and you know, you start having to think about the judging form and all that, you start thinking like which awards I should focus on. And that was when I had to talk with my team and everything, and I really firmly believe that, you know, the answer to this question has to be something that the whole team agrees on. You can't have like most of the team being like, you know, a bit like, we probably can aim for like maybe 2 or 3 awards, but then you have like this a few people in the team that goes like, I'm very ambitious, I want all of them. It's something that, you know, this whole team has to discuss and agree on, or that are your team capable of aiming for these awards, or are you just, you know, better in making sure that you have your just certain awards that you have more confident in, and put more effort in ensuring that you can get these awards. So this is something everyone should think about it for themselves. And when we talk about like judging, we're definitely going to be talking about the wiki, because wiki is like your way of, you know, and letting the judges know what exactly you've done over the past few months. And I mean, obviously it's going to be on your judging form, but there's a lot of details that you cannot put in your judging form, and that all is in your wiki. So to me, wiki is the very, very, very important in your in the iGEM competition. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about like the, you know, the constructing of the wiki, but I'm going to talk about like the wiki, like the content itself, because I think that's also very important. So the first tip I have for like your wiki is to organize everything, right? So you have like, because you know, in your wiki you have this so many pages that you have to be writing, you have to show the judges, and I really, really advise you guys to like just write everything out. So this is our Google Drive, and we just put out all these different folders for each different wiki section that we have. For example, we have our awards page, our home page, our parts page, and in each folder is there's another like subset of folder that will, you know, have its own, you know, files later on. Like for example, if I go on my HP folder, then there's gonna be like these different folders. In each folder, then you're gonna have like your document, like your content for wiki, whether it be the words or the pictures. And I kind of advise you guys to put the words and the pictures kind of separate, because it's much easier to put all the content later on, upload it into the wiki later on. And why is this organization in the very beginning very important? Because at the end, because you're gonna have your wiki freeze coming up soon, I think. And that's when you have to look through all of your wiki. And if you don't like organize this, it's gonna be quite hard for you to kind of go through all of your wiki pages to see if you left anything out. So this is you know, a picture of us with our finished wiki page. This was like after everyone like stayed up for like almost like 2 days straight. It was a weekend before the wiki freeze. And as you can see in the whiteboard behind us, like we just written out all these different pages that we have. Then we have like people, like 3 or 4 people to check each and every page to see if we missed anything. Are there any, you know, errors? Are there any mistakes that we have to, you know, change as soon as possible? All right, so that's about like the organizing part. The second tip is about English writing. And I know that as you all probably know, right, iGEM is an international competition. So English plays a very important part here in making sure that everyone around the world can understand whatever you're trying to say. All right, but this is one of you know, a bad thing for a lot of like non-English speaking or English writing countries, because the way that we write, a lot of like our languages, like Chinese, for example, like their grammar and everything is different with English, and that kind of translates into your English writing as well. And I've seen like a lot of like teams, non-English speaking teams, their wiki their content is amazing, and I'm pretty sure that they have done a lot of work on their wiki. But when they're writing, the wiki content is like there's, you know, spelling mistakes, there's grammatical errors, or some sentences, because of the previous, the grammatical errors and spelling errors, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it will make sense like in their language, but if you translate into English like directly, it just doesn't make sense. And it just kind of makes it so much harder for people to really go through the entire thing and really want to put interest in it, right? So I think a big part of it is also English writing. So these three applications, softwares, theirs are all available online. And these are like the three biggest help in when we were writing wiki. So Grammarly and Hemingway Editor are like more about like your grammatical errors and a bit like collocation kind of issues. And I think you probably would know the Grammarly part well. But for Word Hippo, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but this has been like one of the biggest like help I've ever got when writing a wiki. So Word Hippo was like a thesaurus. It shows you like the synonyms of words or the even the antonyms of words, and even other ways to collocation will also help with collocation also, I think. Anyway, so why is the thesaurus and the synonyms so important? Because I don't know if you've already started writing a wiki, but a lot of times, right, when you start writing a wiki, especially when we're talking about like the same kind of thing, but we're just trying to explain more, you find that you are keep on writing the same word over and over again. Like for example, this project is blah blah blah, this project is blah blah blah, and in the beginning when you start writing it, it seems fine because I'm just writing out whatever is in my head right now. But as you reread it again, you feel like it's why does it keep you feel like an elementary school student. My vocabulary is just that much, that small, and you go like, but and the content is amazing really, but the way you write it makes it feel like less awesome it actually is. So this synonym thing, the thesaurus thing, really helps a lot in making sure that you can get like fancier words, which means the same thing, but it's just fancier, and it really makes that whole process so much smoother, like the reading process and writing process so much more interesting and smoother. So that's also something that I think you guys can try. Also, another tip for English writing is to read online articles and also scientific papers. So the scientific papers is obviously for when you're writing the wet and dry stuff, because you need to know like how the professionals kind of write, all these data, how to explain data, how do they make sure, because you have data in like numbers, right? But how are you going to translate those numbers into words that are easily understood by the people reading it? Because the people who are reading your wiki are not all professionals. They can sometimes be like, just your general audience who just wanted to see what, this team went up to, or maybe even some other teams who don't really have that much knowledge in that particular field. So I advise you guys to like read through scientific papers to see if, how exactly do they explain data. But also but this reading, this scientific paper, the way they explain stuff does not count for like all of the wiki stuff. Because when you talk about like HP or your home pages, right? Those and the description also, those are not very formal, and they don't really have a set way on how to write it. That's why I will advise you guys to read online articles, especially for HP, because HP is more of a way to communicate with the public, right? Like we've done what we've how does whatever we've done communicating with maybe the general public, with the students, like what do we learn from that, or why do we set out to do this in the first place? And these are something that you cannot find in scientific papers. That's why you need to go and see like online articles, especially, you have to see like how do, those English writers write English, how do they write their articles? Do they make it, because it's not very formal, but it's not very casual either. So you need to find that like fine balance between it. And these articles can be a big help, in my opinion. Now that we've talked about the wiki, let's talk about the presentation part. So presentation is arguably one of the quite important in the iGEM competition. This is how you explain all of your project, like how you condense your project into a 20-minute talk to the judges, to the other teams. And writing the script for the presentation is really not an easy thing. And I've seen a lot of teams who really just go and do it like very in a scientific way. It's like how they would present a paper in class. And I mean, it's not wrong, but for this competition, you want something more interesting. You want people to kind of be interested in what you're saying, or people to kind of, attract their attention, because it's a 20-minute talk, and you just talk about like this, your data, and like very science, all that stuff. It's gonna be hard for a lot of people to really put in that attention for 20 minutes to just watch you, talk about your data. So for me, the things to note when you're doing a presentation, right, is to focus on two parts. So either your cohesiveness or your storyline. So when we talk about cohesiveness, what I mean is that the entire presentation has to be like one big story, right? You cannot just make it sound like, oh, for wet I did this, for dry I did this, for HV I did this, and there's like no connection between it. And it's like you're doing separate projects in one big project. And I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, but it's just very separate, and it makes it feel like you're not one team. You're not doing this together. And that kind of like makes you lose some points in it, right? And second of all is your storyline. So as you can see, some teams, a lot of like the teams that win like best presentation, they have like a storyline, right? It's not just them coming up and saying, oh, hi, I'm from what team, our team did what project this year, and introduction, and then our wet did this, our dry did this, our history did this, and that's our project, thank you very much. That's not very interesting, really. So you might find that a lot of teams starting to incorporate like the storyline in it. Like in 2019, we used like this escape room kind of theme, kind of story to kind of connect our entire project. And it's not something that, but one thing to note about the storyline thing is that you have to make it logical. You can't just make up any story and just, oh, I want to make this story goes like this, and I'm just gonna put in my wet here, my dry here, and my HV here, and okay, that's it. It has to be logical, There's gonna be a why I'm doing this, or you need to be able to come up with an idea that really fits your project, that makes or a storyline that makes your project simpler and easier to make sense than just coming up and telling them, oh, data, or I did this. It's different, and this is something that a story would help in making sure that this kind of like package your project into something more easily digestible for people to understand. And that's also something that will help like how the judges would give you extra points for that or something. Because I've seen like a lot of teams, and also in like 2019 in Jamboree, I've been to a lot of teams presentation, and there's gonna be like that difference, in the attention of people in that room when the team in front is just giving you data, or if that team is including a story for you to go along. Because I mean, data is all fine, but we need to also understand that there's a lot of high school students, undergraduate students who doesn't necessarily have that background knowledge or interest in whatever you're saying to be able to focus on 20 minutes of you just talking straight facts, So yeah, for me right now, I think because of time constraints, I'm just gonna talk until here. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Sabrina, for sharing those tips and tricks on the wiki and presentation about how to deliver the information. And now we have got some questions collected before from various teams. The first one is that how do we solve the problem when our experiments fail? Like, how can we deliver it to in the wiki and maybe in the presentation? Yeah, I think that might be a bit hard.
So, okay.
Mm.
Well, that's all right because, well, for our 2019 team, actually, well, we had this beautiful like project flow. There's like 3 parts in our project, but we only succeeded in 1 part. And I don't know if it's like very obvious that we failed, but we did put all of our findings and data into our wiki, and we stated that yes, we did not succeed in this part. However, and also due to like time limits, we weren't able to do more troubleshooting or do additional experiments to make sure that our data is correct or if our experiment will succeed. But we did state in our wiki that this part failed, and we also write in our like conclusions, like why did we think that this experiment failed, or why do we think that this will not work for our project. So I think it's very you have to be honest in your wiki. Like even if you fail, just say you failed, because this is science. You can't be able to ensure that everything goes as smoothly as you want it to be. So that's for like your for your wiki stuff. But as for like right now, because you have enough time, I think you should do troubleshooting really. And you can try to connect with, like, you don't have to just connect with people from like your university. You can try contacting people from overseas to see if they can help also. But yeah.
All right, thank you so much for this.
Okay. Hi, Sabrina. I got a second question. So since the presentation has became online, what barriers and challenges did you see from being an advisor for 2020? And what's your suggestion for change?
So a big part of the best I would find is you need to do everything online, right? It's gonna be a movie kind of thing. And if your team doesn't have like, the people who are able to edit videos or, do all these, it's actually gonna be pretty hard. I mean, you can outsource this part, but your budget, and you're also not very sure if the people you're outsourcing it to has that skill to be able to, make what you want. So that's a very big challenge, because in 2019, as I remember, all we did was like, oh, I just make a PPT, and a big part of our presentation was focused on speaker itself. Like we had to do action and all that. We brought up, there's like that confidence, someone speaking in front of you compared to like watching a movie. But in 2020, and I also seen like a lot of other teams work, they don't even have like, real people coming out and speaking. It's just, voiceovers. And you feel than having one talking in front of you and on stage. So I think the biggest challenge is to kind of figure out like what your team wants to do and how you're going to translate whatever you want to do into a format, into a video format, because that's the hardest part, I think, when the presentation thing is going to be given online.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina. Just like a general question for all of us, because there's only 1 minute left, and I don't think that's enough for like another question. So are you willing to take on questions from teams through emails?
Yeah, sure. If you guys have my contact detail, just send it and I'll get back to you guys as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. You're so nice. Yeah, that'll be it. And I wonder if anyone else have any questions and if anyone want to ask now.
Is there anyone who wants to ask now? If not, I think we can wrap this up by let's taking a screenshot first. Maybe everyone can open their camera.
Please turn on your cameras, guys,
Yes,
for
turn on.
one last picture screenshot, and you guys will be free to go and do stuff.
Yes, and we seems like
Okay.
almost everyone
Let's
here.
welcome your beautiful faces.
Right. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, let's
Yeah, let's take a
let's take it. Okay,
Three,
3, 2,
two, 1.
1. Yeah, one more time. 3, 2, 1. Yay!
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in today's symposium. We hope that we were able to, like, the informations were delivered to you guys, and it will be benefit for every of us. And see you again next time. Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Sabrina,
joining.
thank you, Sabrina, for joining us today.
I'll send out a video link for everybody who's here in the room. And thank you for joining today, and have a nice one.
No problem.